let's talk about time. I had an incident happen a couple weeks ago that was challenging, but I thought, you know what? I cannot be the only one that has this happen to me. So several things happened all at once. Um, I had a doctor's appointment in the afternoon. I had to pick my son was home from school for a variety of reasons, and he had Awanas in the evening, and we left the house at 3:45. He needed to be home for, oh, and my husband was also on call. That was another thing. And so all of these different things play into our afternoon. So we left the house at 3:45. I did not get home until 6:45. And I'm going to tell you all the things that happened. And when you're dealing with time, you need to know, at least have a guess as to how long you think things are going to take. You need to be aware of the wild cards that happen. And then you have to accept the reality of what's happening. So my son came with me to go to the doctor. The doctor took about 45 minutes. We had to pick up a prescription. It was right across the street. I had never picked up at this particular pharmacy. And so we waited about 10 minutes in the car, and then we went in and there was 10 people in line. And so we got in line. I looked at my watch, and by this point it was like 5:05. And I realized I had arranged for someone to pick my son up from home to take him to Awana's because I knew my husband was on call. But we weren't going to make it home in time, I didn't think. And so we waited in line. I sent him to go I gave him some cash, and he went and bought something in the grocery store for dinner. He's 10, and ate it while we stood in line. We finally got up to the desk, and they're like, "Oh, it's good to know you're here. It's not ready, but it'll be ready in 20 minutes." So by this point, it was like I think it was 5:20. No, let's see. Sorry. It was 5:30. We'd been in line for 20 minutes. That's what it was. It was 5:30. So we got in the car, and I was going to race him home so that our friends could pick him up and then come back and get my prescription. As we get in the car, my husband texted and said, "Hey, I'm on call. I just got called out. I'm not going to be home." So I'm sitting in the car and I'm thinking, okay, what do I do? And I thought, I'm just going to text the friends that were going to pick him up and ask them if we can drop him off instead, which they were totally fine with. But we had to run by home because he needed his book to go to Awana's. So thankfully, while we were waiting, I had gone and gotten some Chinese food as well for myself, but it was just sitting in my passenger seat. And I didn't know at the time, so I got it at 5:15. I was not going to get to eat that Chinese food until 5:45 or till 6:45, an hour and a half later, but that's okay. So I left, and we drove by our house because everything was far enough apart. Nothing was in the right order, right? There was the pharmacy was here, our house was here, and our neighbor's house was here. And it's like a perfect triangle. And there was just no fast way, and it was traffic because it was evening, everyone was off work and stuff. And so I had to acknowledge the wild card of the pharmacy, that even though we had waited in line and given them enough time to fill the prescription, it wasn't filled. I had to acknowledge that it takes 20 minutes to 25 minutes to drive to their house, and that I wasn't sure what time the pharmacy was going to close. And so I was going to be in the car. So we left. We went by the house, picked up his book. I just stayed in the car. He ran in, got his stuff, came back out. We hopped back in the car. Or from our house, our friends only lived 10 minutes. So we drove to the 10 minutes. He just ran out, knocked on the door, went in. I then, because I was at the low end of the triangle, I had to drive back to the pharmacy, but it was on the opposite side. And so I did. And that took about 25 to 30 minutes because I was tired and I couldn't think of the best way to go. So I took the longest way, unfortunately. But I finally got there, and I was able to just stay in the drive-through because I asked, because they knew I was coming back. And it was at the point that I was sitting in the drive-through that I was like, we left the house at 3:45, and at that time it was now 6:30. I was like, oh my goodness. If you had told me when we left our house at 3:45 that I was going to be gone for the next 3 hours, I did not have that budgeted into my mind. And so I just want to encourage you as you're dealing with time, as you're juggling everyone's schedule, as you're dealing with unexpected events like going to the doctor unexpectedly and getting prescription unexpectedly, that it's okay. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to let your child run through the grocery store with $10 and find dinner. It's okay to come home to a quiet house and reheat your dinner that you bought an hour and a half ago so that you can enjoy your dinner. It all takes time sometimes. And you can be frustrated or you can just acknowledge it of this is how long this whole afternoon took. And everyone's needs got met, maybe not in the order that I thought they would get met or in the timeliness that I thought they would get met, but everybody's needs got met. And so that matters and that is worth acknowledging. So I hope this helps you get unstuck when you feel stuck about time.